I'd like to invite our next panelists to come and join us on the stage, including our illustrious moderator, Sheila Copps. So if I could ask Sheila, Lisa Raitt, the Honourable Lisa Raitt, Françoise Boivin, Bernadette, Clement, and Priddy to please join us on the stage. That would be fantastic. And I will just very briefly introduce Sheila, who many of you will already know and really doesn't need any introductions. Sheila was a former Deputy Prime Minister, was first elected to office in 1981 to Queen's Park, and was successfully elected federally in 5 elections. She was appointed Deputy Prime Minister in 1993 and had a huge influence in her role as the Minister of Canadian Heritage. I had the pleasure of working with Sheila in the last few months in her office, and I'm really delighted to have her join us today. Thanks very much, Sheila.
Thank you, Chi. Thank you. Wow. Happy 10th anniversary of Equal Voice. Happy 100th anniversary of International Women's Day. And notwithstanding those columnists to the contrary, we are not a small group of angry women. We are a growing group of women who demand and seek and will get power. When I was asked by Equal Voice to moderate this panel, I immediately said yes. J'ai toujours dit oui très vite, parce que je sais.
I always say yes as quickly as possible because
feel as though the momentum, the train is leaving the station. This conference center was a train station, and the train is leaving the station. And today we've got a panel of women who are going to explore some of their experiences in some of the foibles, the tips, the ups and downs of political life. So I'd like to take this moment to introduce them, and we're going to start with, we have an actual schedule, which of course I've set aside here. So I'm just going to do it in alphabetical order. La première personne sur le panel is Bernadette Clement. Bernadette was born in Montreal, and she attended law school in Ottawa. Fluently bilingual. For the past 18 years, she has served as lawyer with a legal clinic in Cornwall and also serves as its deputy director. She was elected to the Council of the City of Cornwall in November 2006 and re-elected in 2010. In August 2009, she was nominated as the candidate of the Liberal Party of Canada for the riding of Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry for the next federal election. Bernadette is a part-time faculty member with St. Lawrence College, board of the Kinsman Community Residence, and president of the board for the Family Counseling Center and Baldwin House. So I'll turn the microphone first over to Bernadette. Ça marche?
Bonjour tout le monde.
Oui, ça va.
Bonjour Sheila.
good morning one and all. Good morning, Sheila.
We'll have a couple minutes of synopsis of your individual situation and then a chance for the panel to interact, because we have all political perspectives represented and many kinds of experiences. So a few minutes synopsis and then discussion.
Okay. Alors bonjour tout le monde. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you to the speakers before. This was very inspirational. It sets the right tone for this event. I came to politics, I would say, late in life. Into my 40s, and I probably should have done that sooner, but I didn't think to do it until I was asked to do it. And I'm not sure why that is that women often wait to be asked when we should think about that and do it as our male colleagues do, oftentimes without being asked. So I did not, we're going to talk about the nomination process, and what happened with me is I decided to go into municipal politics. And what happens when you get elected and you win big, the parties look around and say, this woman is electable. And so then they come to you and say, well, maybe we should have you as our representative in the next federal election, which is what happened to me initially. They approached me when I first won, and I wasn't quite ready. And then in 2009, the Liberal Party came and said, would you be our candidate? So I was acclaimed And I think that that is an easier process, of course, for the candidate, but oftentimes municipal politics will take you, success in municipal politics will take you down that road. And I will be able to chat about foibles and difficulties as a woman candidate, but also advantages and positive points.
Merci beaucoup. And our next speaker, who is going to come with a sort of a different experience in the nomination process, is Françoise Boivin. Elle est la candidate pour le Parti néo-démocratique de Gatineau. Françoise Boivin, passionate, femme de parole, veut être une voix très forte pour la circonscription de Gatineau. She was elected a member of Parliament for Gatineau in 2004. And during her tenure served as chair of the Liberal Women's Caucus, the first female member of Parliament from Quebec to do so. In 2006, she returned to private practice, where she remains very active in the community as a commentator on TQS and Couleur FM Gatineau and host of La Vérité Choc with Roger Blanchette on Canal Vox. Her love for Quebec, Canada, and her fervent desire to build a just and equitable society has led her to federal politics, where she continues to excel. Françoise?
The yellow one. Okay, excellent. Bonjour tout le monde. Pour commencer, je vais...
Good morning, one and all. To begin, I'll speak a little bit in French. I haven't heard too much of my own language here this morning, today yet, but my track was quite different from that of Bernadette.
And I planned it after I had the best teacher in grade 5 who taught us, which I think lacks right now, the importance of political life, of getting involved, of being a good citizen, of voting. And I lived my first campaign and I won, and I thought it was so exhilarating beating a guy, learning how to count at 10 years old, that there were 30 students in my class, 15 girls, 15 boys. I needed 2 boys at least to win. It was just fun. And when I came home, I told my parents, one day I want to become the first woman prime minister. I will never say that ever again, I'm telling you, when I look at what they go through. But that was my dream, and my parents, especially my dad, who loved politics, said, please do it. But one advice he gave me is, because he was a civil servant here in Ottawa, and he did all his career there, and he saw enough politicians in his life, and he said what he thought sometimes politicians lacked was the feel for the reality. They got disconnected. They live in their bubble in Ottawa. So he said, please don't just go to a university and move along to politics right away. So he said, get involved. You want to represent people, go learn what people want. So that's basically how I divided I decided I would lead my life. So I went to law school. I got really involved, communication, and I aim for politics, because except for the cases when you get elected on municipal and you attract the attention of the boys club, it's very hard to enter politics, to federal politics or provincial politics. So you need to either be known in your community or be known by the boys club in some aspect. And I'm sure we'll have chances to come back to it. But that's how I decided I would get involved, and one day it would come naturally. Thank God I didn't know what the process was, because maybe it would have scared the hell out of me. But sometimes ignorance is bliss on the how to do things, and that's what got me my first win for the investiture in Gatineau in 2004. But we'll get on all my exciting life and why I'm an NDP now.
Merci, Françoise. And also,
Thank you, Françoise.
so when we finish the brief interventions, we will have opportunities for some questions from the floor as well. So just line up and be ready to get your questions out. Our next participant is the Honourable Lisa Raitt. She was first elected to the House of Commons in 2008 and currently serves as Minister of Labour. Prior to her election to the House of Commons, Lisa was the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Toronto Port Authority. Ms. Raitt is an active member of her community. She volunteered as a Halton canvasser and fundraiser for the Canadian National Institute for the Blind and for her children's hockey, soccer, and gymnastic organizations. In 2002, she was invited to become a member of the Canadian chapter of Worldwide Young Presidents Organization. Ms. Raitt, Minister Raitt, lives in Halton and is the mother of 2 boys. So turn the microphone over.
Ironically, I'm a blue mic. Okay. Just saying. Thank you very much, Sheila. I appreciate it. So here's a funny story. When I was the CEO of the Toronto Port Authority, I approached Sheila Copps about what it would be like to be a woman in politics. Long, long time ago, you were giving a speech, and I was introduced to you, and you said, you got to work hard, is what you said. It's just a lot of hard work, and I appreciate that word of advice, and it's an honor to be up here with you. I mean, you did so much for the port system in Ontario, and I was part of that system at the time. Toronto, not Hamilton, but that's okay. So I have very similar, I think, to what's already been said before, and I agree with Bernadette completely that it seems to be inherent in women that even though we know we want to be part of politics and run, we really like to be asked, and we really like to have somebody tell us that they think we can do it as well. So that happened early in my career at the Toronto Port Authority. And it wasn't a conservative or a necessarily conservative or liberal who came to me to say that, but they said, you know, you stand up well in front of City Council, you answer questions well, you're a good advocate, you should think about politics. And so I did. I thought about politics. But I was in my mid-30s to early 40s during the period of time when I was CEO of the Toronto Port Authority, and I was the sole supporter of my family. My 2 boys are now 9 and 6, and I was literally in the middle of giving birth and raising babies at the time when I was trying to get my career on track. And making that leap to actually enter into politics is a very it's a decision fraught with a lot of difficulties, and it's a hard decision to take, and I don't regret taking it, but I can tell you that it's if I had to go through the nomination process, I would not be sitting here today. And the reason is this: because I ran a federal organization, even though it was arm's length and everything, it was a nonpartisan role. You had to work with any government that was in power, and I worked very well with the Liberal governments during the early part of my career, and then with the Conservative government at the end of my career at the port. But the key is that the minute you come out and you say that you're one party or another, it's going to affect your work. And as a result, my board, rightly so, and I agreed that I would take a leave of absence without pay, sole breadwinner, 6 weeks, no money coming in the house for 2 kids. We took that risk, and obviously it paid off, but we had 4 scenarios of what would happen if I lost, if the party won, those kinds of things. And it was a really difficult decision. It was compounded by the fact that somebody in Toronto thought it would be a great idea to criticize me for not just taking a leave of absence without pay, but they felt I should resign my job as CEO of the Port Authority in order to run for a political party. That, to me, is absolutely too high a barrier for women to go through. And what worried me wasn't that, it was just politics at the time. What worried me wasn't, it wasn't going to affect my decision, but that was in the newspaper, and I don't want any women in a federal public service or a provincial public service or even a municipal service to think that they have to give up their salary and their career in order to run for politics. It is clear in legislation that everybody has that right to pursue politics. Don't let anyone bully you into not taking that risk, because it is absolutely worth it. So in the nomination process, I was very lucky in that I was able to hold my desire to be the nominated candidate until the writ was dropped. And then I was brought in, and my EDA was kind enough to accept it, even though I came out of nowhere for these guys, but they accepted it, and we went on and we had a successful campaign. But it does upset the grassroots. So that's a status quo issue that we really have to look at and we have to address. And I look forward to talking about the campaign, because it's outrageous, some of the stuff, I know we're on TV, sorry, stuff that can happen in a gender-based campaign. And it will appall you and it will shock you. And I think just sometimes people don't think about the words they use. So with that, and leaving everybody waiting for more of us to say what we're going to say, that's a story. So I was nominated, I was brought in to the EDA. The EDA Board of Directors nominated me. We didn't have a nomination meeting, and the reason was because I had to take a leave of absence without pay in order to even seek the nomination, and I was not willing to do that for a period of uncertainty because my babies had to be fed, plain and simple. So with that, Sheila, over to you.
It's funny how different political parties, women have a lot of the same experience, and I think that's what you're going to find today. It's a kind of a resounding or a theme that resonates throughout the political process. Our fourth panelist is a dynamic voice from the West, all the way from British Columbia, Priddy, who's a former member of Parliament, and she has a long history of representing her community. She chaired the Surrey School Board, served as a city councillor, and was the very popular MLA for Surrey Newton. As an MLA, she held a number of cabinet portfolios for the BC NDP government, including Children and Families and the Ministry of Women's Equality, the first freestanding Ministry of Women's Equality in North America. Penny was elected MP for Surrey North in 2006. After 22 years of holding elected positions, Priddy is the only woman in Canadian history to have been elected to school board, city council, provincial legislature, and the House of Commons. For 7 years, she co-chaired the Canadian Women Voters Congress annual campaign school, and I highly recommend that to all of you. If they have a website, get on it. She regularly conducts sessions that focus on speaking skills for women interested in politics. Penny.
Thank you, Sheila. My introduction to politics, I think, small p politics anyway, came very early on. I started out my life many years ago as a nurse. And I knew that inherently there was something wrong when I had to stand up every time a male doctor came into the room. Now, I didn't know what it was, but it just didn't feel right. Now, there are people I will stand up for. Sheila and I actually had the great fun of taking Prince Charles through a seniors facility in Vancouver. I know to stand up when Prince Charles comes in the room. I don't stand up just because somebody's a doctor. And it just didn't feel right. And I'd grown up in a very privileged, I'm an adopted only child, grew up in a privileged community, hadn't felt very much about having any rights denied, anything like that. But being a nurse taught me, about I shouldn't have to stand up, but secondly, it taught me a lot about people who don't have voice, because that was in the days before there was health insurance. I then moved on to positions where I was the CEO of a nonprofit organization, again, for people who didn't have voice and didn't have power. And my job and all of our jobs were to help give people voice, or to help people find their voice and find their power, because I don't think I have no right to empower anybody. My responsibility is to help people find their own power. I always find it kind of an odd phrase that I somehow can empower you when I can't. I can help you find your own power, though. And I got into politics in an elected way, and if anybody thinks I've done a good job, they can thank my daughter's grade 6 teacher, or if they think I've done a bad job, they can blame my daughter's, or they can blame my daughter's grade 6 teacher. I ran into a situation, and I'm a pretty assertive person, that I could not fix. And I took all the steps I was supposed to take, because I even did workshops on how to be an advocate for your child. Well, it didn't work. And this teacher was still there at the end of the year, and I wasn't happy. So the system hadn't worked. So I got into politics and ran for school board. The teacher didn't teach in the district again, and I had a great time doing 4 years on school board. And each nomination process, and we'll talk more about that, is different. You know, when you run for a local, and I think that's been mentioned, a trustee, a school trustee, or a municipal council, it's a very different kind of nomination than a provincial or federal one, because you really do have to be known out there in your community. I've had great fun. I've had great nominations. I haven't had a lot of road bumps. I do apologize for that. But I have great stories to tell. And I guess we're going to talk about the campaign trail. And what I would say is, I learned in my nominations is that women will help you, maybe, but you can't count on the fact that because someone's a woman, they're going to support you. And there's lots of men who will support us. And I did that in all of my nominations, and I consider myself very blessed to have both brothers and sisters who supported me.
Well, we've had a little snippet. I don't see anyone at the microphone, so I'm going to launch with the first question. And the first question is, if you, assuming, because we're focusing now on the nomination process for national government, assuming you had one piece of advice to give to these young women who are actually planning to seek a nomination in a political party, one single piece of advice, what would it be? And perhaps we can start with Lisa and go along.
It costs money. It costs money to run for a nomination. You need to put your money on the table, and you need to fundraise, so you need to network. And I agree with you completely. It's not just women who are going to support women, because quite frankly, we hesitate at signing checks for political parties as women. Don't hesitate. You need to be in the game. Money has to be on the table, because you just don't walk into a nomination and expect people around you to front it. You have to take the responsibility. So be prepared to have to fork out some cash, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And if you don't have it, then you need to fundraise, and you do that by networking. And that's the simple truth on nomination process.
Well, I had my first nomination process was a hard one, because I was facing the president of the local association, who had kind of groomed himself in becoming the replacement of the MP at the time. So when I said ignorance is bliss, is because if I had known what it involved, the money it would cost and everything, maybe I would, I doubt it. I think I still would have gone, because I felt that I had to. But when I say it was really hot and contested, is that it became a question of who got the most members to come and vote, the rules, how to be able to, if the party likes you, and that's hard fact too. It's all hard truth that you have to know, because if you're not on the right side, the rules might not be helpful. They might not put the date of the nomination at a date that suits you, the newcomer, who needs to go get new members, because the person controls the whole association and membership. So you have to think along those lines. You can't think, if you're not considered what they call, and I hate the expression, a star candidate, they don't give you nothing. You have to fight for it. You have to be assertive. You have to be putting your foot down, and sometimes up some people
and sometimes buttocks. Putting your foot up.
Yeah, exactly. Just to say, we'll not take that crap, because that's not fair. Oh, we're on TV. And I'm a TV person. Yeah, excellent. Hi. Mais c'est en anglais, c'est correct. Il y a personne qui va avoir compris ce que j'ai dit.
If I repeat it in French, nobody will hear a word anyway, so.
Time was a factor, but you have to tap in your network. So that's where I go back to what initially I said to you. Thank God I had worked over 20-some years, and I had been in so many networks that I was not afraid to tap in all those networks, all the people you've helped along the way. all the community groups you've been involved with, the women's group, the charitable organization. Everybody could become a member. It's hard though, because politics, not many people want to touch it. So you find resistance. I realized that I had quality in sale that I never thought I had, just to say, well, listen, it's not colors. I even had separatists in Quebec. It's quite the feast to come on a Federalist Party at the time, because they believe in the candidate. So if you believe in yourself and you make the others believe, and that's how we won. I mean, we won by almost a hair, but when we consider in retrospect all the things we had to overcome, I mean, they were in shock on the other side. And after the result, I was in shock too, because I was so overconfident. Don't ever be overconfident. That's not a good quality in politics. But, okay. So tap in and have a good organization. Sorry.
And no, that's okay. It's just Bernadette, you don't have a contested nomination. You were nominated, and so your process is a little bit different. But what do you have to do between now and whenever that election is launched?
Profile. You really have to be high profile in the community. And je veux juste enchaîner sur ce que Françoise.
And I'd like to just follow up with what Françoise was saying.
Being acclaimed, I had come through this through community work, and Nancy this morning, the speaker, Karatak Lindell, spoke very eloquently about how you don't realize how much profile you have when you have, this board and that board and this community work, this amount of volunteer work. I was a legal aid lawyer for 18 years before doing that. So all of those people that you've helped, that you've met all those years, come forward, especially if they feel that you're a good candidate. And now that I have been a candidate, and it's tough being a candidate since September of 2009. It's a long haul. And the media can be very critical of people, particularly women who wear many, many hats, because I had to decide whether I should run again for City Council. So I was already on City Council, federal Liberal candidate, and then last fall there was the election again. What should I do? Should I run again to continue with the work that I'm enjoying doing, continue with my profile? And I had a lot of people saying, well, that's too much, Bernadette. You can't wear too many hats. You really should focus on one thing at a time. But as women, I don't know about you, but we tend to multitask, and we tend to be able to do a lot of things all at once. So I would have a lot of people saying, you should focus. And I'm thinking, no, I need to keep my profile. And I need to enjoy what I'm doing. I love being on City Council. So if you're happy and enjoying your work, that shows. It makes you a better candidate. So it's all about keeping a very high profile in the community while wearing all these hats and continuing to build your relationships.
Penny.
I would say and amplify what the other speakers have said. When students come into my office and ask for a business card, I used to say, now I want you to take this card home and put it in your contact list. Because I think everybody from the age of 16 on should be building a contact list. Because some stage you're going to need that contact list for something that you're going to do. It may not be politics, but for something. So building the biggest network and recognizing the network you already have, which you said, and building the biggest skilled network you can find. I went to people and said, look, I want to run in this election. I intend to win, but I really need your help to do it. And some of them weren't even New Democrats. They were liberals and conservatives and whatever. But it was, in that case, it was about me. These were people who supported me. So you should never eliminate anybody from your potential network when you start out. Because the people who vote for you at a nomination, federally or wherever, are part of those people are going to vote for the base. That's the party they've always supported. And the others are going to vote for you because you're Sherry Graydon. And they know it, and they're going to vote for Sherry Graydon. Doesn't matter what party they voted for the last time. So, don't be hesitant that you have to stay small. You absolutely do not. And I think the other thing I'd say is to remember that it's not all about you. It's about the team that you've got. And not that I'm suggesting that everybody won't win their nomination, but if it doesn't go well along the way, it's not about you. You have to remember that. Somebody mentioned Rita Johnson earlier, who'd been the Premier of British Columbia. Well, I ran against Rita Johnson and she was defeated. That doesn't mean I won. Sometimes a government is just going out. Doesn't matter, they're going out. Doesn't matter how good you are, they're leaving and you're coming. And I was there and I won. So I think it is important so you can sleep nights to remember it's not about you, it may be about the party. It's not about you, but it is about this great big network, and ask everybody, including the male person, come and help you.
Money, profile, community involvement, networking. 4 good messages right there, and we have 3 people at the microphone, so I'm going to ask the person at microphone number 1 to identify yourself and ask your question, please.
Danielle Takis, and I'm from Brantford. And my question would be for anybody who wants to answer it, but in particular, I would be interested in hearing from Penny and Lisa. My question is, based on your experiences and where you see how our country is today and where it's going, if you think a form of proportional representation would better serve not just women candidates, but the representation of Canada across the country, if that would encourage and see a better reflection of the society as well as women, or if you feel that our present system is not necessarily broken but just needs to be finessed.
Do you want to go first, Penny, and then back to Lisa?
Sure. Thank you for asking that question. I support proportional representation. This is 2011. We've had the right, we won the right to vote in 1918 for Canada, although actually didn't happen until after the war, because 1918 you had to be related to a soldier. And it's now 1911, so 7 years short of a century, and we're at, what is it, 22%?
2011.
2011, sorry, yeah, we're at 22%. So it seems to me that that system, no matter how we're working at fixing and changing, and there is some progress, I think that there has to be systems change before there's greater progress.
Lisa?
I don't think proportional. I don't think proportional representation is the answer. So we have a system where we're sitting at 22%. And let's take a look at why. I mean, why are women not entering into politics? And does it have to do with the fact that they're held back or they're not allowed to? There's women in politics everywhere. It's accepted. When you're born, although you're measured for how tall you are and your weight at birth, one thing that doesn't happen is you're no longer designated as this is a girl, therefore she's limited in what her possibilities are. That simply doesn't happen anymore. You can be a political woman. So the question is, why don't we have more women out there doing it? And I agree that the system is broken in a couple of ways. One of them, I would say, I asked Erica M. why women, because she does the Yummy Mummy thing, which is a really cool website to go to. I said, Erica, why are women our age with kids not getting involved in politics? And she said, they don't want to be in politics. Why would they get involved in this stuff that you see all the time? So we need to make it more friendly for them. And I'll tell you something, I'm going into a campaign. I have 2 kids. I don't do all the events that the male counterpart or the somebody who doesn't have 2 young kids do in a riding. I can't put in that much face time because, quite frankly, Saturday mornings I'm going to the hockey rink with my son. And on Sunday morning, I'm going to go to church. I'm going to go to the hockey rink with my son. Will that be held against me in the campaign because I'm not around and I'm not accessible? Absolutely. And you know what? That is wrong, because we have to recognize that women have other lives and that people have other family obligations they have to do. So when we have those kinds of things happening in campaigns, other women read that and they say, you know what? I'd love to do it. I'd love to be involved, Lisa, but really, why go through the hassle? We got to break down that hassle thing. It's not about representation, because we're still not going to get those women involved even with proportional representation. And quite frankly, the voice we need to have in Ottawa is that middle voice, the 35 to the 45-year-old woman with a family, because it's not here. There's only a handful of us. It's not even a 0.01% of the people who are elected that are here. So that's my spiel on proportional representation. Great idea. Doesn't get to the heart of the matter at all.
Thank you very much. We're just next at the microphone, but before Sheila Gervais speaks, I just wanted to add that years ago, my daughter, if you can believe it, is going to be 24 in couple weeks. When she was born, I brought her to Parliament, and I actually breastfed her at meetings, business meetings that I had, which was quite shocking at the time. And it was in the news, and there was a whole discussion. But in the last quarter century, when I thought this issue would be dead, sad to say that on International Women's Week, there's probably more attention paid to Baby Gaga's ice cream than to some of the issues that are really facing in the blockage of women. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sheila Gervais.
Wow, you can never live up to the other Sheila. As a former, I'm a former national director of the Liberal Party of Canada many, many moons ago. So as a former administrator of, at arm's length a little bit, but of a nomination process, and I was a candidate for nomination as well. So I have a little bit of that experience, and that experience was that I got squished like a little bug, because the processes, even though I'd been involved in a lot of them, are designed for a male culture by a lot of men. Not a nefarious thing, it's an historical fact. We also heard from Nancy earlier today that Canada ranks 54th currently on the list of percentage of women in national parliaments, and of those that have reached that critical mass that we heard about also earlier this morning, the 33% threshold, there are 22 countries out of 189. 22. Canada, the U.S., and the U.K., with our male-oriented systems, are way, way, way down the line. Of those countries that are successful, that are on that list of 22 to 25, they have all instituted one or a combination of four things. They have looked at their electoral system. So in some cases it's proportional representation, in other cases it's preferential ballot, what have you, or a list process, but it is not the first past the post process that we have here. So they've looked at their electoral process. They have quota systems, either voluntary or mandatory, and in the mandatory they're either regulated or in some cases they are actually constitutional. That's the case in Rwanda and other countries like that. Or they have used their campaign financing legislation in all variety of ways, either through disincentives or incentives. In Canada, not so much. We haven't done any of those things other than a little tiny regulation of nominations in terms of the amount of money, that can go into nominations. So, long way around to say we haven't done any of that in Canada. If we jump into the middle of all of that, into the voluntary quota aspect, the individual parties hold that very close to themselves and their own processes, and have, done little things in that regard. How much do any of you think that the time has come for some sort of regulation in the nominations process to come from Elections Canada, where the actual public, as opposed to only members who have to very often, as Françoise knows, be actually invited or accepted into the club, and are not, treated as automatic members of the voting pool. So, kind of a long way around.
Okay, you've got the question, and we have to. I've just got a note. We got 15 more minutes, so we have two more questioners, and I'm going to ask Françoise Boivin to take that question, and anyone else who so chooses.
Wow, lucky me. I'll try to answer. Actually, I think I do have experience on the matter, because I lived the hard way, the nomination process through the Liberal Party of Canada. I was chair of the Women Caucus at the time, and maybe I think the only time it was called by the media the Powerful Women Caucus. And I've known now the NDP way. So I'm able to look at two organizations, how they treat their women candidates, and I can honestly say, but hey, it's coming from an NDPer, you take it as is. What I can find in most main parties most of the time is that the women, unless you are really considered star candidate, and star candidate based on a weird concept. If you're known nationally or something, it goes without saying. If you're the chair of the porch something, you're somebody that a party wants to bring, that's good. If you're very well known in your area, but the party doesn't know you, you'll have to work really, really hard. And what most main parties do, sadly, in my opinion, is that they don't put enough women in the winnable ridings. So they use the women aspect as a quota. And they say, oh, we need to be able to say at the start of the election, we are closing in on 50%. What I found with the NDP is that they do try to put the women in winnable ridings. It's really part, and the regulation is within the party. So to do a bit of a round thing like you did with your question, I don't think I'm really for regulating through Election Canada. I think it's part of the parties. When we analyze the party and we look inside them and what makes them tick, as an elector or as a future candidate, it should be part of our process in thinking. If you want to affiliate to a party that is respectful of the place of, and not just on statistics. I mean,
okay, Françoise.
That's it. Okay, that's
we got 5 more people, so we're going to have to. Okay, c'est beau. I didn't realize that there are 3 people at the back microphone. That's why I'm getting a little panicked, and we've got about 10 minutes altogether. So why don't I go to the back? If you could please keep your question very short, and then we'll try and keep our answers tight too. Thanks.
My name is Janice Calnan, and I'm formerly from Hamilton and a number of other cities now. And I've worked with people in leadership roles for over the years. And I'm curious to know, from your perspective, and for all of you in the room, just to think about it, what is the block, the internal block within me that gets in my way from stepping forward? Because when you answer that question, you can then move.
Okay, that's a very good question. Internal block. If anybody else has a theme of internal block who are currently at the microphones, do you want to jump up and pose a similar question, or we'll go immediately to the group? Go, Lisa.
I believe women are risk averse. I think that we want to make sure that our houses are taken care of and our families are taken care of, and we don't want to rock the boat. And I think it's a great quality because we're stable, and that's why our voice is sought. But fundamentally, we're risk averse.
Thank you. Bernadette.
Thank you for that question. One block for me, and I'll speak now as a woman, in those roles. And even though I'm a lawyer and I have education and resources, somehow that was very powerful for me. I didn't see myself there reflected, and so I just didn't think that was something. Yeah, never thought about it. And I realize now when I speak to young women and young girls who see me saying, wow, I'm going to do that too, and just absolutely take it for granted that they're going to run, that's brilliant. And I realized that was an issue for me.
Thank you.
Penny?
I think the fact that that people say that women are risk averse is a bit of maybe how people see women because of the roles that we take on or that we don't take on. It didn't occur to me I wouldn't win. Didn't occur to me I shouldn't run. As they say, I'm an adopted only child. I've always thought my place was just about anywhere I wanted to be. I'm being a bit flip there, but I think the emotional block, or the removing of the block, is knowing that you've got a circle of people around you who are tight, they're supportive, they're honest with you, and knowing I could do that with a support group removes the block of thinking I have to do this all by myself. I can do anything with other people.
Okay, I'm going to ask the first 2, there are 2 people at the front to ask their questions, and we're going to finish off the front microphone, then get to the back again, because I'd like to get all the questions in before 11 o'clock.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sandra Aguinode from McGill, Montreal. My question is this. An ongoing theme so far is the importance of community building and having contacts in your community. But what advice would you give to international students like myself who are invested in Canada. I mean, I completed my high school in BC, University, Ontario, and then Quebec now for an MA. So you're invested, but then you're not in a place for too long. Your parents aren't here, but then eventually you're going to become a PR, a permanent resident, or a citizen. What advice, though, would you give to those like myself to encourage us to participate and find that community despite having to move around all the time?
Okay, and I'm going to ask you to bring your question to the floor also, and we're going to have to try and meld two questions.
Okay, my name is Megan Harris, and I'm a former candidate. I actually went through the nomination process and won, did not win the election, and I'm also a member of Equal Voice. I just wanted to make a point. I think one of the often overlooked but very important element of running for office is joining your riding association. For anyone in this room who has a remote interest in running, it's overlooked, but it's a really critical point because that's how you learn the rules of how the nomination is going to be run. You learn who the players are in the riding association, those who think they're going to be the next candidate, and those who are the movers and shakers, those are the people you trust. You don't just walk in and say, I want to be a candidate. You go in, you pay your $10, which is the cost of being a member of a party in Canada, and you just become involved. So you get your name on the list, you attend the meetings, you attend the conventions, and you just learn the process, and that's how you build your profile in the party. So I just wanted to say that. The other thing is, and you know what?
Quickly, please, because we have two other people at the other microphone. Sorry.
And also, if you're going to run, choose a riding that you think you're going to win in. So find a riding you think you're going to win, and join that riding association. But finally, my question to the ladies is this: what is the one thing you learned through the election process that you wish you knew before you ran?
Good question. Okay, international students' involvement and one message about something you might learn differently. And I'm going to start with Françoise.
Very quickly, I think the second lady gave the answer to the first one. So get involved. There might be an election coming, so come participate, come canvass, participate in an electoral campaign. It's also a great time to meet close people. The one thing I learned from the election process, I think, Penny, you touched it, and it's very important because I remember my dad, before he died, he said, I hope if you have something bad happening to you or I just wish I could be sure that you'll know how to get up from it. And I must say, after winning a campaign and then losing in 2006, I thought for 24 hours, and I say 24 hours, my life was over, in a sense that it was so hurtful because I felt I had worked so hard. I thought it was so ingrate. I always thought that if you work hard, you get the benefit of working hard, except in politics. And I learned the lesson of my life is that it's not about you. It goes over you. I just chose the worst time to get into politics, which was 2004, to be a liberal. But that being said, don't take it ever personally, and that's it.
A rising tide lifts all boats. Lisa.
Best piece of advice on a campaign: get over yourself. Don't look at yourself in the newspaper. Do not look at yourself on television. Television makes you look horrid. And if it doesn't make you look horrid, then you're kidding yourself.
And never get shot up.
Yes.
Photography, do not allow yourself to be shot from the bottom up.
Yeah, brutal. It's brutal. And that flowered shirt
camera angle.
And that flowered shirt you think you love, it doesn't look good on TV. But in all seriousness, get over yourself. And ladies and gentlemen in the room, you have to go door to door. And yes, it feels like you are intruding in somebody else's life and you're taking them away from their dinner or whatever. But you got to do it. You got to go door to door, and you have to ask people to vote for you. And that's a hard thing to do, but get over yourself and do it. Because if they don't know you want their vote, they're not going to vote for you.
Good advice. Good advice. Penny.
A couple things. One of them is I, throughout almost my entire political career, never read bad media about myself unless the people around me tell me I need to. Because I don't know why anybody...
I didn't have the time.
Right, yeah. Well, you could have called it a bit, Sheila, you know. Because why would I want to read a whole lot or watch on television a whole lot of negative things people were saying about myself when I knew that if it was an important one I had to address, people around me would tell me that. And I'm amazed at the people who read all of the negative press that people write about them. It is an astounding psychological punishment to me that people would do that. The other thing for the international student, everybody should be a mentor and everybody should have a mentor. And in any kind of campaign, and that would be great, what international student would bring so much skill to a campaign, but everybody should be a mentor, everybody should have a mentor.
Great advice. Back microphone.
Thank you so much. My name is Flora Terra. I was a parliamentary candidate in Kenya 2007. I'd like to know, apart from the financial constraints, what are the challenges you face as members of parliament in Canada?
Challenges as members of parliament, and I'm going to get the last question in there too.
Hi, my name is Hillary Buckenterrell, and I guess I'll just throw my question right in there. Just wondering if there's anything you would have done differently throughout your process. You've obviously been very successful, but what would you do differently?
Okay, what would you do differently in roles of member of parliament? So I'm going to start with Lisa.
So member of parliament, it's the number one thing that I hear from other women who don't want to run. I leave my house at 7 a.m. on Monday morning, and I don't see my kids again until Thursday night. Single hardest thing you do, because they're growing every week. So that's the worst part, if there is a worst part, because it's a great gig. It's the only gig where anybody could possibly be a politician, and you're qualified for it just by existing. So I think it's an amazing gig. It's true. It's true. There's no qualification needed for this, just passion and heart and kindness, I think. But anyway, all of us aren't kind. On the other part, though, the other question, Sheila, remind me, what was it?
The first one was on member of parliament.
Oh, what would I do differently? Absolutely nothing, because you are who you are based upon the mistakes that have been made, things that happen to you. You can't control what happens to you, but you can always control how you react to it. And I've grown. And I'm very happy where I am today, and I have a good headspace, and I'll just continue to deal with things the way you deal with them. So I have no regrets. I wouldn't do anything differently. The timing was good, and if you go back and think about things that you could have done, you're going to drive yourself absolutely nuts. Live in the moment, plan for the future.
Françoise.
Very quickly, as an MP, nothing different. I think in a year and a half, I feel like I lived, when I look at all the experiences, to the max. I learned so much, and it was so exhilarating. I mean, it was a combination of all the things that I love to do, which was to frame the political process, have some good piece of legislation, being part of some of the greatest committees, and at the same time interacting a lot with the media, participating in the debate, being sent by my party to defend the brand in English and French. So I really improved my English a lot there. So that was fantastic. On the things I should have not done, I would say, had I learned from you guys before, I would have read way less bad press. That would have been great.
Bernadette.
So I want to go back to some of all of these questions. I was surprised by how much advice I started getting once I became the candidate. And you have to learn to take the good stuff and put aside the bad stuff. And there's pressure to change you once you become a candidate as well. It's maybe well-intentioned, but there's all kinds of people telling you that you should look a certain way and sound a certain way and say things in a different way. And you really have to really find your own voice. I just want to say one story.
Good advice.
Just recently, a columnist in my local newspaper in my riding said that I would never win particularly in the outlying rural counties, because I am a black woman, a black heritage woman, francophone. And that was actually in print in 2010. And I sort of choked on my coffee when I read that, and promptly decided to make sure that the city of Cornwall proclaimed February as Black History Month, and promptly decided to champion a French-Canadian maple syrup festival. So you have to be who you are. I just want to make a Lady Gaga reference here. You're born this way, so take it on. And yeah, it's true though, yeah. And so you take it on, and you say some advice you can take and some you can set aside and be yourself. Lisa, you're right. People respond to people who are themselves.
Penny.
In terms of the question was about federal?
As an MP, is there something that you would do differently? What experience? And also the other question was...
as an MP, would I have done anything differently? I don't really think I would have. I think the most important thing that anybody can do, federally or anywhere else, and we don't talk about this often enough, is know where your line in the sand is. Because there will be times people are going to want you to cross that line in the sand. And when I look in the mirror in the morning, I have to know that what I've done did not cross that line in the sand. And the line in the sand can't be, I won't sit late 4 nights a week. It has to be about a policy value that is deep inside of you. And I did learn that people want to have a conversation with you. Whether you are, no matter what kind of politician you are, especially federal, because you're so far away, there's this tendency for talking heads, right? We're here to give you our political message. Look what good work we can do. But people don't want that. They want a conversation, even when you're door knocking. They want a conversation. And they want those dog biscuits that are in my pocket, because I get 50 votes from dog biscuits every election.
Well, be careful of the dog biscuits, because you can also, I'll just end with one little anecdote about dogs, because you have to learn a lot about dogs. When you knock on doors, make sure that you keep the screen door shut. Because one particular day I was campaigning, and this giant Great Dane leapt through the screen door and bit me in the leg and put a hole in my pants. But he didn't actually break the skin. And I was kind of flustered, but I wanted the guy's vote. And he said, oh, this has never happened before. And then he agreed to put up a sign. And then I saw the postman, he says he bites somebody every week. But I came back a few days later just to make sure the sign was still up, and it was, so I never did anything. So we love everyone, even those whose dogs bite us when we want their votes. Thank you, panel. It's been an incredible, I'm sure we could go on for a couple more hours. I will make a couple of comments on if young women are looking at running for office. I wrote 2 books. One I wrote in 1986, so it was a quarter century ago. It's called Nobody's Baby. It's not published anymore, but you can get it from the library, but it's a very good guide to the sort of things that we're talking about, practical things about how to get a nomination, how to get an election. And then the last one is called Worth Fighting For, and it gives you a bit of an inside scoop into politics, so it might be worth taking out from the library. Again, congratulations to Equal Voice. Congratulations to 4 strong women who aren't afraid to speak their mind and to take their party and their country on when necessary. And I'm going to turn it back over to Chi Nguyen. Thank you. Merci, Miigwech.